My presentation today is just about answering the call for just public health professionals. So the purpose of this is just for me, I can just kind of tell a little bit about my story. I'm young, I just graduated, so, I'm pretty fired up to do these things, but then I realized just the role of imposter syndrome. So growing up, we've all experienced this, you're the smartest kid in the room, but then you go to university and you're like, oh gosh, everybody's just as smart and as brilliant as me. And it's even worse when you're a person of color because you're like, oh gosh, I have imposter syndrome and I'm the only person in the room who looks like me. So what do I do? So according to Psychology Today, around 25 to 30% of high achievers experience imposter syndrome, and then 70% experience imposter syndrome just in real life in general. So just some of the things to cope with imposter syndrome is you have to realize that you do belong. You don't have to be perfect, and you just have to be honest with your team and just say, hey, I need help. And it does not reflect badly upon you if you don't know something, because we cannot know everything. So just a call for public health professionals. So we as public health professionals have dedicated our lives to creating equity no matter which field we choose to work in. And we have to trust our training. And also remember that we're not going to get graded for anything that we do after this because we've already graduated. So we're out here just to actually practice and help people the best we can. So just a little more about my background. I'm from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and I studied human nutrition at Oklahoma State. Go Pokes. I grew up in a food desert. And I never really had the word for that growing up, but after just getting all of my public health training, I realized that I'd experienced all types of environmental racism at an early age. So there were no sidewalks in my neighborhood, there were no grocery stores, no street lights really, and then there was low air quality too, since we lived right off the interstate. So I thought going to medical school would allow me to fix all of those things that I saw just in the environment, but then I realized that that might not be necessarily the right field for me. So I ended up doing a public health internship at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And when I was up there, I actually got to deliver water at Flint. And that was just a breaking point for me that let me know that, hey, I need to dedicate my life to creating equity because it doesn't make any sense for these people to still have to pay for their water when lead is coming out of the pipes. So throughout my MPH, I did a lot of work with the Colorado Black Health Collaborative. So I had to answer my call there again. So imposter syndrome was crazy for me. I was just like, oh gosh, I'm still in school. How am I supposed to be the expert on this? But luckily, I was able just to trust my training and start doing baseline data collection. Well, lucky for me, I realized, oh, hey, I'm still going to work with the CBHC. So for my capstone, this truly was just the breaking point for me as a professional. And I had to realize that, hey, you might have imposter syndrome, but you're going to have to step up and lead. So I was able to lead 2 focus groups, and those focus groups dealt with just menthol use. So essentially, why did people in the Black community choose to smoke menthol cigarettes, even though we know it's not the most healthiest? So it was really great data. And then I was actually able to use that moving forward to actually work with the youth and see why they were vaping when the vaping epidemic was really going on. So just COVID, just kind of shifting gears a little bit. So the pandemic has shaken us all up, and Zoom has definitely become the new norm. And because of COVID, we started to answer the call again in public health. So with the CBHC, we were like, we need to do something to actually address the pandemic. So one of the things I did was I worked as a B-Chart health educator, which stood for Black Community Health Action Response Team. So me and another woman were actually able to do a lot of cold calls, and we actually were just COVID educators. So we worked with Denver Public Health, and we were actually able to just get a lot of work done to work on vaccine hesitancy. We got people vaccinated, and we weren't even able to get a couple of vaccine drives started. So some of the best experiences I've had working with B-Chart was when people were just hopeless and would reach out to me. They were just be on their last leg, and they're like, hey, I don't know what to do. And we were actually able to help get them resources, and it felt really good. And also working with the public health department has been great to just sort of build rapport between the Black community and Denver Public Health, just because of the long history of just systematic racism. So I'm not really one to say that a situation is negative, because you can always learn from just what you experience, but for sure, I would definitely say I was frustrated with the amount of vaccine hesitancy stories I've heard. I heard people say that they would get microchips. I heard that the vaccine would change the DNA and make them zombies, all types of just crazy things. So our team took that personally, and we decided to actually do what we can do to actually start getting vaccine drives started, and as well as starting a little social media campaign to address the vaccine hesitancy, because we want to make sure that we're achieving health equity and all communities members are getting vaccinated. So just some of the biggest lessons I've learned were just you need trusted community partners. You need people who look like you to actually go in these communities, because they actually understand the trauma that these groups have went through. So one of the things that I always like to mention is a Tuskegee experiment. So one of the things I have to clear up with people, they're like, oh, they gave us syphilis, so I don't want to get this vaccine. When in actuality, you didn't get treated for syphilis, which doesn't make it really much better, but it's just like clearing up some of that miseducation and some of the stigmas, just so you're actually able to just address the hesitancy. So just my final thoughts on this, that we are not our mistakes. We do not have to be perfect, and we just have to make sure equity is our lens. And I just want to end with one of my favorite quotes from Chance the Rapper. It's turn all of your L's, which will be a loss, into a lesson. So that's really all I have for today. And thanks for letting me be up, just share this with you all. And thank you.